Hi, this is Trevor Klee, just a tutor, and this is lesson 7 in how to start a tutoring business, talking about your sales process. So once again, when you first get your first few clients, it's a really good time to practice your sales process. Now, this is the sales process that I use, and I would advise you to follow something similar to this. It took me a long time to develop this. I estimate it was probably like $20,000 worth of like lost client opportunities before I figured this out. So this lesson is like my $20,000 lesson. Um, so, if you're thinking, is any of this stuff worth it? I don't know how much you paid for this course, but this lesson cost me $20,000. So hopefully, you won't have to spend $20,000 on your own to learn this. So without any further ado, let's talk about sales process. So 4 steps, not super complicated: email, phone call, in-person or Skype meeting, tutoring. Let's start with the emails. So tutoring is inbound sales. By inbound sales, I mean people read your website, they, form their opinion on you based on your 4 factors, your web presence, whatever, and then they contact you. You don't ever cold call people. I've actually tried cold calling people. It goes very poorly. So it's inbound sales. Now, the way this is going to work is someone's going to contact you and they're going to say like, hey, I'm such and such. I'm interested in tutoring. Normally, they don't say a lot more than that. Sometimes they write an essay, but most of the time it's like just a couple sentences. So when you respond to them, here's your goal. Don't try to sell them. I know this sounds crazy because it's a sales process, but don't try to sell them. Instead, engage them. They contacted you because they're already interested. You don't need to sell yourself right now. You just need to engage them. So what I do, I write very short sentences where I just ask them questions about themselves. This is like maybe I send them like 2 emails. So they'll send me an email, I'll send an email back. They'll send me an email, I'll send them an email back. Really short, basic stuff. So like here, someone contacted me and said, hey, I'm interested in this. And I said, good to hear from you. What's your GMAT score currently? Also, how have you been preparing for the GMAT thus far? Nothing brilliant. Didn't sell myself at all. This person already knew who I was. I don't need to sell myself to them. I just want to convince them that I'm like there, I care about them, I'm interested in this. I want to engage them in this process. So we exchanged emails back and forth a couple times, and then finally I send them an email. I'm like, okay, well, for next steps, to see how we can best work together, let's arrange a time for a phone call. That's always how I end the email chain after 2 or 3 emails. I don't sell myself again. I just ask them a couple questions for like 2 emails. Then on the 3rd email, I say, let's arrange a time for a phone call. Then I talk to them on the phone, 10 to 15 minutes. Not a long phone call, pretty short. Again, I don't sell myself on this phone call. I draw them out. My issue was when I first started, I thought, oh my God, this phone call, I have to sell them right now. I have to do everything. And I'd pick up the phone and I'd talk. They wouldn't get any words in. And then they'd be like, well, sorry, I've decided to go for someone else. And I was like, oh man. What I figured out is you don't sell yourself. They contacted you because they're already interested. Just answer any questions they have. Beyond that, draw them out. Ask them questions. Get more in depth. Get so they know you. You don't want to just like sound like a reporter, by the way. Like you certainly want to say like, I say, so, what makes you interested in the GMAT? And they say, oh, I'm looking at business schools. And I say, what business schools? They say, oh, I'm interested in Harvard. I say, oh, that's a really tough school to get into. What are you planning on doing, afterwards? Very basic conversation where I'm just drawing out their plans, figuring out who they are, the way they work, how they study. I am trying to talk as little as possible. If they talk the whole time, that's awesome. I don't want to say anything. At the end of the phone call, maybe like 10 to 15 minutes in, it just hits like a natural pause. Conversation starts to seem a little more forced. I say, well, it was really nice talking to you. For next steps, let's find a time to meet in person. Or if they're, international or whatever, I say, let's find a time to meet over Skype. What's your schedule like? And, then I arrange a time to, talk in person or over Skype. And I say on the phone call, when we meet in person or over Skype, I can explain a bit more about how I work. Make sure you're happy with that. And only if you're happy with that, then we'll find a time to start working. It's very low pressure, right? First, it was just emails. Then it was a phone call. Now it's an in-person meeting. Very low pressure. I just am trying to engage them and talk to them. This part's really important, by the way. If you end the phone call without getting them, without finding an actual time to meet in person, you messed up. Because people are naturally lazy. If you don't tell them this is when you have to, this is when we're meeting, they're probably not going to arrange it on their own. Most people will just let it slip and they'll forget about it, and then they'll contact you again 3 weeks later and be like, oh my God, I forgot. Don't do that. Lead them through it. Gently, but lead them through it. This is when we're going to meet in person. When we meet in person, I'll explain what I'm doing. Once I, have the phone call, we've settled everything, I send them an email afterwards and I say, pleasure talking to you. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, Tuesday, May 1st at 5:30. Let's meet at my office. Pretty straightforward. Had the phone call, drew them out, arranged an in-person meeting, sent an email confirming the in-person meeting. Lastly, in-person meeting. So this is probably obvious, but for your in-person meeting, show up on time, be professional. Showing up on time versus being 10 minutes late can be literally assuming these people are planning on paying you $1,000, $2,000. If you do not show up on time, you run a real risk of losing $2,000. Is that really worth it? Show up on time. So during these in-person meeting or Skype meeting, 20, 30 minutes, first I start by saying, what sort of questions do you have? Any lingering questions? They ask me the questions, I answer them. Then I say, you mind if I explain to you a bit about how I work? So they say, sure. I say, this is how I work. I work off of practice tests. From there, I'll, explain this is, I work off your practice test, figure out your individual strengths and weaknesses, and then from there, we craft a lesson plan. I say these are the materials I use, and I say this is what to expect in terms of the amount of work I want you to do, the homework I'll assign, what sort of contact we'll have. By the way, I tell everyone I work with, as long as we're meeting regularly, they can email me as much as they want about anything they want. People usually like hearing that. Almost no one takes advantage of it, so I actually rarely get emails from my clients. But it's a nice thing to be able to say when I'm selling them. I say, hey, listen, if you have any questions, you can always email me. I'm not going to charge you for emailing me. It's a really nice thing to be able to say. All right, last, I once cover the teaching process, make sure they know that. I say, I figure out when are we going to meet? First of all, when's our first tutoring session? I say, this is how much I charge. Is that okay with you? And then I say, before we meet, 5 or 10 hours payment. And last, I give them something to do in preparation, which is normally a practice test. Again, escalating commitment. First, we started with emails. They just have to respond back to the emails. Then a phone call, then an in-person meeting. Now, not only are they paying me, but they're also doing work for me. They're getting into this mode. People want to escalate this commitment. It's a natural way of getting into it. You can't jump into the escalating commitment, but at some point you do want them to be, meeting you regularly and paying you regularly. So you need to gradually lead them into that. All right. So, and then at the end of it, of course, I send an email confirming all of it. I say, here's when we're meeting. I say, here's what you should do beforehand. Here's the money you should send me. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. Like, I'm not, being super slick. I don't sell myself unless they ask me. If they say, do you have any, other clients who've, experienced success, or, what's your experience or something like that, and they just happen not have seen it on my website, then I'll explain it. If they don't ask me to sell myself, I won't. I'll just explain how we'll work together. So, key tips about this. First, this is something I've repeated over and over again. Don't be sleazy. Like, I go to one of my hobbies is jujitsu. And I know a guy who teaches jujitsu who's a really nice guy. But it kills me. He thinks that in order to be a successful jujitsu teacher, he needs to be like very slick about it. So, he's like, well, I'll give you $170 per month, but if you sign up within the next 24 hours, I'll take $20 off that. And you know what? That $20 off that'll last you, 6 months. So really you're saving like $120 if you sign up in the next 24 hours. Don't do that. You're not a used car salesman. You're not selling jewelry on QVC or whatever it's called. You're a trusted professional. You're like a doctor. You're like a lawyer. You are a trusted professional. Your entire goal in this sales process is to express the idea that I am someone who you can trust. I can get you to your goals. That's the aura you should be giving off. Not, I'm, bottom of the barrel and I will use any sales tactic possible. That's terrible. No one's going to trust that guy to help them achieve their goals. Second tip, be gentle. Don't hard sell yourself, but be leading. From the emails, you're the one who suggests a phone call. From the phone call, you're the one who suggests an in-person meeting. From the in-person meeting, you're the one who suggests a time to start tutoring. If you let people lead, they will be lazy, they'll be haphazard, and you'll never get anywhere. I only let people lead if they absolutely insist. Sometimes I'll be emailing someone and they'll be like, can we do a phone call tomorrow? And I'll be like, yeah, sure, whatever. Or, during the phone call, they'll be like, I want to start working. I'll be like, I'd rather us meet in person before we immediately start working. But, we can't. I'll let them lead if they absolutely insist, but it is my preference by far that I am the one leading, that I take them step, and then finish. I really don't like skipping steps either. If people are emailing me and they're like, when can I sign up? I used to be happy about that. And then I found out people usually, when they do that, they have this reaction where they're like, when can I sign up? And you're like, okay, send me the money. And then they're like, oh my God, I didn't mean to say that. And then they just leave. Save people from themselves, gently lead them through the entire process so they become comfortable with the escalating commitment. All right. So sales process, start with emails. Ask them questions about themselves, a couple emails, and then ask for a phone call. During the phone call, ask them questions, draw them out, answer any questions they may have, but mostly draw them out. At the end of it, arrange an in-person or Skype meeting. In-person or Skype meeting, answer any questions they have, explain what they can expect from your teaching process, confirm first time of meeting, payment details, and anything else. Last, tutoring. Start tutoring them when you said you would. Key tips. Don't be sleazy. Act like a doctor, someone who is a trusted professional. Gently lead them through the process. Lead them, but don't hard sell them. And that's how you sell yourself as a tutor. Thanks, and see you next time.